firstly, I'd like to say welcome to everyone on behalf of Esoteric Thoughts, a YouTube channel that is bringing information relating to spirituality to the public. And today's topic is about polygamy. So, as I said, you don't have to have your cameras on, but this is a discussion. So we do wish people to participate. So firstly, I will start with the definition, the dictionary definition of polygamy. So it's the state or practice of having more than one wife or female mate at one time. Some people have the misconception about polygamy, thinking that it's all about the man and it's all about sex. But polygamy has been something that's been tradition through many different communities across the world. So this channel is highlighting this topic. It's going to be one of many different discussions on spirituality and theology. So as I said, welcome again on behalf of Esoteric Thoughts, and my name is Kasati. If anyone wants to introduce themselves, you're quite welcome to do so.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name's Sarah, and I've basically joined the forum tonight just to get some information and some knowledge. I must admit, I don't really know much about polygamy. I know that it's about a gentleman being able to have more than one wife, but apart from that, I don't know much else. I don't know anybody who engages in it or is involved in it. So for me, I'm very curious. So, you know, it's just questions and knowledge for me, basically. Everybody can do as they please. We're all free-willed. We have our opinions and all the rest of it. So I'm not here to, you know, to judge or anything like that. It's just, I'm interested. I want to know what it's about, basically.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Nix, and there's a few people on the call who I've spoken to in the past, actually, and I'm curious and open about polygamy. As Kasati had mentioned, I don't think that it's necessarily an easy thing for two individuals to be together for an entire kind of expanse of time, with only those two providing all of their needs that they need, like whether it be relations, physical relations, or whether it's going to be just relating to another person. I think that it would be a healthier dynamic if there's a party of people together in a situation rather than just one on one all the time. So I'm curious and I'm open to it. And that's why I'm here, and to find out more about it.
Hi, I'm Donna Robert, and I'm just here to listen and to learn more about it.
Okay, greetings everyone. Excuse the relaxed kind of look, but it's Friday evening and I'm just chilling and looking forward to discussions. And my name's Shadia, and I'm an initiate of the Earth Center, and for myself, I agree with polygamy, and I'm aware of the importance of not only the points that Kasati has raised thus far, but also the importance of polygamy is not just about sex, it's also about the importance of bloodline. So in regards to the children that will be brought into the world. So that's also another important aspect of polygamy and where I'm in agreement with. And that's it for now.
Hi everyone. I don't know if you can hear me. My name is Irianka. I haven't got my camera on because I've just been rushing around trying to sort the grandchildren out. Let's see if I can put my camera on. Okay, that's better. Yes, hi. Yeah, my name is Irianka, and I am an initiate of the Earth Center. So in regards to the topic this evening, I am aware of it, and I know what it is, and I know how it works. For me personally, I don't think it's something that I can do, I could be involved in. So I'm here this evening just to hear a bit more about other people's views on it. But for me, I don't think it's something that I could sort of agree to. Even though I do hear like what Kosati was saying, but I do believe that, you know, as women, you know, we come on our monthly, you know, things, and it's a natural thing. And I do believe that it's a time where we have space where we will rest, and a man should understand that. But I don't believe that I could share, say, my husband with another woman. I don't know if it's yeah, and that's just me. But I'm here to, and I'm open to hear other people's views and their opinion. Thanks.
Well, thank you so far. So, Mama, can you hear us, please? I know you're having issues with your mic. Can you hear us? I may call her and she can contribute through the phone. So Mama is an 84-year-old, and she wanted to participate in today's topic. And I respect her views, regardless of whether she agrees with this or not. As an elder, we look up to them. So I'm going to go on mute, and whilst the other people introduce themselves, and I'll call Mama that way.
Greetings, everyone. My camera's off because I'm just in the middle of doing all sorts. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, greetings. Yeah, my name is Sanuka, and I am an initiate as well of the Earth Center. So I have been exposed to polygamy in the traditions, and people from the West discussing it, a little bit of people being involved in it, but not heavily from people in the West. I also think that if, from Kasati's definition, I think that there is a lot of polygamy that occurs, say here in the UK, I'm not in the US, without people probably describing it as such, because lots of people are in relationships where the man has more than one woman and the women know it. I'm not talking about the ones where they may have one official woman and then the official woman doesn't know about the woman that is not official. But whether they like it or not may be a different story, and one might have more prominence than the other. But there's a lot of people in relationships where they know that there's two or more women in a relationship with the man. So therefore, I think polygamy goes on a lot, but we just don't give it that name.
Thank you for that, Sanuka. Well, I've got Mama on the other line. She's got technical issues. So Mama, would you like to speak, please? We were just introducing ourselves and giving our brief opinion of what we think polygamy is for us.
Good day, everyone. As I say, polygamy is a practice of marriage to many women. It causes a lot of problems sometimes. For me personally, I don't like it because I'm a very jealous woman, and I do not like the way how the men take charge of the women so much in this culture, that is there, you know. And I really, personally, I wouldn't do it at all. I do not like it. There are many. I watch a lot of African films, and I see a lot of things that goes on when many mothers having children, and some of them do not care for the other, although they are one father. Some of the mothers do not really care for the rest of the children. Those children that is not hers. You know, I see they put them up against each other, and that is, I don't really like it. I know of somebody in Jamaica. She married to a brother and did not know, because they have the same name, but because of the way how, where the word gone from me now, the way how the masters give the slaves their names.
Mm-hmm.
So she did not realize that is her brother. She had children with him until one day a friend of her come back and tell her that is her brother, whereas she had already have children with him. So what she did eventually, she divorced him. Because she said she didn't know, and it caused a lot of problems. So this polygamy, I know it's been a long time. Those people who like it, who love it, it's good for them, but not for me.
Okay, well done for that, Mother. And would anybody like to comment on did everybody hear what Mama said firstly? And would anyone like to comment on that, please? Okay, no one's commenting.
I just want to say, I do agree with Mama when she said that it could cause a lot of issue. It's not an easy thing for the women that are involved, nor is it for the man that is involved, because he has to balance things. He has to make sure things are fair between his wives. And like with Mama, I am a jealous person, as Mama says. I'm like her. So yeah, I couldn't do it. But those who, you know, believe it's something that they could do, then fair enough. But I do agree it can cause a lot of problems. It's not just straightforward, I don't think. So that's that's my contribution to that.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Irianka. I would say, in regards to what Mama said, in regards to the issue with the brother and sister, if polygamy was practiced, because that was not a polygamous relationship, that was a man cheating on his wife. So if polygamy was practiced, that could not have happened, because the two siblings would have known each other. So would anybody else like to comment? And Gigi, iPhone, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good evening, sisters. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. I've been listening to what Mama said, and I personally, I've spoken to quite a few people about this topic, because for me, polygamy is not for me. However, I'm not against it on the basis that if it is practiced correctly, which I do know some people in different cultures have practiced, and it's worked for them, because the wife in traditionally, if the wife has a bag of rice to the left, the wife to the right has a bag of rice as well. You know, if she has a house with a swimming pool, the other one has a house with a swimming pool. You know, one lives in overseas and the other one lives over here, and they're happy, you know, and their children are happy, and they live as a tribe, as a unit, and they look after one another, you know. So for me, I can see how it can work if it's done in a traditional sense where it's equal, you know, because in ancient times, this is how men and women lived, you know. But where it is practiced whereby the other person's not aware, and it's, you know, for greed and for loss, that's where I would agree with Mama's point that it's not, you know, that is, but to me, that is not polygamy. That is basically taking advantage of someone, that is cheating. You know, it's not the same concept.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you've just said, sis. And when things are when things are in the open, and honesty and decency and respect is prevalent, then it's a good thing. It works well. And you say about the children, the thing about it, in regards to polygamy, the man has to stand straight. He has to support financially 2 families, or maybe 3, depends on how many wives he has.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so yes, it can work. We know it has worked for hundreds of years. And whereas monogamous relationships have been practiced in the West, we also know the rate of divorce is very, very high. So that doesn't bode well to say that monogamy is a good practice anyway.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to jealousy, jealousy is a human trait. And it's not everyone that is jealous or carries that jealousy. But jealousy is a very negative thing, and it doesn't bode well in any relationship, whether it's a relationship between friends, within families. Jealousy is a very divisive thing, in my opinion. So Elaine, would you like to introduce yourself? I see you've just come on.
Yeah, just to notice, Tanika Sati, I haven't introduced myself either.
Yes, Dua Nelly, go on first, please. Sorry.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nelly. I'm also an initiate from the Earth Center. So my position on polygamy, a little bit like Gigi. I'm not against it. We know it's been practiced for a very long time. Although I don't think it's for me. Also, my understanding is that, as Kasati just mentioned, it's like people need to raise their qualities to be in such relationships. You know, you have to make sure that people are treated fairly, that, you know, they keep themselves in check so they don't get jealous, so they can communicate efficiently. Because I don't know, amongst people it's easy to have communication breaking down because people misunderstand or feel like somebody gets more or are favored or things like that. And also something that people really need to consider is today, for men to be, I'm talking in the West, for men to be in a polygamous relationship, he has to earn enough money. Like, because if we all saying it's for the children and everything, but I don't see many men that have the means in the West to support 2 families and the children. So it's something that, again, like we can see, like, some of the relationships that have been mentioned, like men cheating or having multiple, being with multiple women. This is not polygamy.
That's right.
The polygamy is something official, that they're married. So those other relationships is like people not really taking responsibility for their action, really, and trying to have a little bit of fun or whatever. But as I say, it's extremely difficult for a man in the West to be able to support more than one family. They're struggling already with one. So yeah, that's my point. I think I'm not against it. I think it could be a wonderful system, support system, but I don't think in our community, at least, we have the right quality. We're not in our right mind. It's very tricky to find, people men with the right quality and women with the right quality to engage in such relationships. That's my point of view. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Could I just say that the short period of time that we've been on, and I've been listening to, the different ladies' accounts and stuff, I must admit, I'm seeing it in a totally different light. The fact that it's so structured and stuff like that, it's nothing like, where my mind was taking me initially, without the knowledge and the experiences that I've heard. And I'm beginning to hear what the benefits can be, obviously, if it's done correctly, the way that you're explaining it and stuff like that, where it's structured, everybody agrees and stuff like that. So I'm appreciating the knowledge that I'm getting from you ladies. That's what I want to say, because I'm already thinking and seeing it in a different light.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Sarah. Yeah, and yes, it is, from my knowledge, it is about extending the bloodline. So when many men can have different wives, it is about extending the bloodline. Also, they can have a wife that they do not consummate that relationship with as well. So Sunuka, would you be able to give some of your knowledge on that, having been to Africa as well, maybe seeing it working?
Ujai, what I would say, I have been to Merita and I have seen quite a few relationships. I'm probably like a lot of people. I'm from Caribbean background, so we always say to know you and to live with you is two different things. So I would say that, I've only glimpsed the traditional polygamy from the outside. And therefore, I have had conversations with people who are in polygamous relationships, but because of the language barrier, most of those are with people who originated from the West, i.e. the States or wherever, and then they are now in polygamous relationships, whether they're with people who were born on the continent or even with other people who maybe originated from the States or whatever. What I think we have to look at is that we've all been given a very romanticized view of marriage. Most of us have the Cinderella story from when we were young and various other equivalents that give us a very romanticized view of marriage, of not even true romantic, but of kind of Disney-fied romantic love. And therefore, most people, that's what they're seeking in the West. Many cultures and many people, their idea of marriage is different. If you think about it, when you get married in England, you actually get a marriage license. So someone's giving you permission to perform a function. Yeah, you have a marriage license. So you sign it, the other person signs it. So it's not even a true contract, it's a license. So the country's allowing you to have a certain type of partnership with somebody else, which is more to do with marriage rights, rights over the children, and all this sort of thing. It's not really about the kind of romantic relationship we're talking about. So when we go into the tradition and we look at the way that people view marriage, a lot of the time they look on marriage as how they're going to function in life, what is going to happen to them as a person, what's going to happen to their future generations. And therefore they enter into marriage on those bases. And because we have all this romanticized views in the West, we don't realize that actually when we have a marriage in the West, the origins of that actually was also on the same basis. That's why they give you a license. So, you know, many different traditions have things slightly different. But when you think about polygamy, as Kasati says, in theory, it's supposed to be so that the people's bloodlines can get perpetuated. A man physically can have many, many children at the same time. You know, so when I say that, I mean, if he has, you know, a man could have 10 wives, 15 wives who are all giving birth in the month of June. Whereas a woman, you know, even if she has multiple births, maybe 2, 3, very rare woman will have 5. So the anatomy of women and men are different. But what we don't look at is on the material sense. In the continent, people are living closer to nature. They're looking at survival. So over time, you have practices that evolve, that perpetuate their survival. And so polygamy on the one level, on the material level, we're just dealing for that minute, is something that has been evolved over years. And you can see that it will help to perpetuate the survival. Because if you have women who are going to have children, though many of them provide for themselves in reality in the modern day traditions, you know, while you're incapacitated, pregnant, and so on, so you can't run around like you did before, and the kind of things that you have, traditional things, men and women, you need to have a husband who's going to be able to provide. So if you do have a man who has 2 wives, and they think, okay, we can provide for our children, we can either till the land or whatever it is there to do. If they're a priest, we can help with making medicines, whatever it is. Then it's a more practical way of living and mode of survival, because we may have a romantic view and say, oh, we only want to have one husband or whatever. But if you're in a situation where you can't have a husband or you need to survive, then having a husband and polygamous relationship may be most suitable. The other thing we have to consider that in traditions, the choices that we have, they don't necessarily have those choices. And the reason why I say that is, one, from the materialistic point of view, we said there now, survival, needing to have a husband that can provide, and so on. Also, even certain marriages, certain traditions, people married into between different tribes and so on to promote harmony in the wider community, and so that there were links between communities, so that, you know, it helps to decrease aggression. Then you would have to get onto another level again, which is the level that would be the level that starts off with in proper traditional Kemetic society, is you go from the spiritual level first. And therefore, even when we think of the concept of polygamy, you know, it's not something that you believe in. Now, you can agree to do it or not agree to do it, but it's not a belief. Polygamy is a way of life. And really, before anybody enters into that way of life, they should look and see, is that something that they should be doing spiritually? Is that in their destiny to do that? Is that going to further advance them or their family? So you'll find even in tradition, not everybody enters into a polygamous relationship. And even in tradition, some people do enter into a polygamous relationship and it's disastrous. And that may be because they're not supposed to. And maybe they decided to do so. So there's many parameters that go in. And, you know, when we think of it, even if we say the term monogamy, everybody would acknowledge, you know, marriage is individualistic and it's different for each person. And it's the same thing as polygamy, even though there is a wider understanding of, let's call it the rules, the mores that operate within that society. So you could find yourself in a traditional society and say, for example, if you have a child that is sick and the child is saved by a priest, some people then will send that child to study under that priest, and that child will become a trainee priest or whatever. In the same way, you could have a man who's respected, and then for whatever reason, the family want their daughter to marry that man because they want the daughter to have children in that bloodline. They feel it's a destiny, and therefore they will invite, they will accept marriage offer, invite that person to marry their daughter. Now, in that society, sometimes for duty and so on, the daughter will say, okay, I'm going to marry that person. In the West, most of us in the UK, I would say, and in the Caribbean, we've been brought up in a different way. So when we're looking at polygamy, we have to look at what polygamy we're talking about. People could be here in the West and they decide, okay, I'm going to enter into a polygamous relationship. But what boundaries are you setting for that relationship? And what is it based on? What principle would it be based on? So when we're thinking about polygamy, it's not like polygamy is just there, exists, and it's exactly the same for everybody else. Many traditional societies have different ways of polygamy. As Kasati touched on, sometimes somebody might pass away and somebody will marry that person because of the same thing. I say we have licenses over here, it gives you certain rights, and they will marry that person in that society so that it will protect their property rights, their as we would call them, nieces and nephews. So a brother might marry his wife's, his brother's wife if the brother dies. Now, they may or may not have a consummative marriage. Say they don't consummate the marriage. He may marry that brother to protect the property rights for the children of his brother. And those children, as we would call them, nieces and nephews, but in tradition, they would regard them as their sons or daughters. If two brothers have children, each other's children are regarded as their own. So there's a lot of things that we don't understand in many societies. But I would say that if you're talking about polygamy, I would say, what principles are you standing on? And what would you want to achieve from that? So when we're trying to replicate that, it's not so easy, because a lot of the time people say they want to go into polygamy, but they like the sound of it. But the actual, never mind the material reality, but from a spiritual point of view, is it what they should be doing? You know, just on that, I have the privilege to have met the Voodoo Queen a few times in Merita. And one of the things she said, in her personal opinion, she wouldn't advise anybody who's born in the West to enter into polygamy, because she said it's a very deep thing. And because of the principles that you need to obtain, the understanding that you need to have, she thinks it'll be very, very difficult for anybody born in the West to enter into that. So I'm not advocating that somebody does or doesn't, but I'm saying that we have to be real with ourselves to see, where are we coming from? The kind of ideas that have been imbued into us for many, many years. You know, say if you're even 30, you know, how many fairy stories have you read? How many movies have you watched? You pluck on the television any day of the week and you watch a movie. All these romance movies from when they're children, you know, it's been ingrained in. So if you want to do something different from that, then you would have to really look at yourself. And then you've got the whole other story of, if you're dealing with a human being as a man, you know, men, just like most other humans, if they're in a situation where they're allowed to be able to do something, often they will do what they can get away with. So therefore you come back to the thing, Nelly touched on it, about principles and setting something. So within all of that, there is a role for polygamy in our communities, but you would have to very carefully look at what you are doing, in the same way that I would say that for anybody in a monogamous relationship, or who are embarking on a monogamous relationship, because not only do you have two energies to deal with, as in physical, spiritual, you know, whether jealousy or not, emotions to deal with, but you would have at least three energies. And if you have more wives, more energies to deal with. So somebody mentioned one person's living on one continent and then living on the other. That's an easier thing to deal with because you can cut off. But if you're in a situation where, often I've seen some people online and so on, they're all living in one house and all this sort of thing, I think that is a recipe for disaster, you know. And the other thing is, often, even in polygamous relationships, you find when it comes to a certain time, how much time does the husband actually spend with some wives? It's almost like they're not with them anymore. So there's not an easy one-stop answer for anything, but it is something that we need to look at and seriously look at, because often, as I said in my opening thing, people are practicing polygamy even though they don't label it as such. You know, how many women on this call know women that are either in relationships or have been with men, and they know there's another woman involved, often with other children and so on and so forth. So there may be a role to say, if it was more formalized, those children would have a better outcome. So anyway, you know, I could unpack for a long time, so I'm going to leave it there for the moment.
Thanks, Sanuka. Nepal, would you like to jump in here, please?
Yes, thank you. I'm really enjoying listening to all the different perspectives. I love how the women here who even say they would never do it are present and listening. That speaks volumes, because you know, they want to understand that type of marriage. I personally am, I'll give you a little background on who I am. I wear several different hats, but one of my hats is I am a family relationship counselor. Actually, that's one of the parts of my doula career that I do. And I specialize in polygyny. I am a polygynist activist. So I am I had pushed polygyny for a long time. I come from a polygynist family. So and by the way, polygamy is pretty much like a general term for just both genders. It just means having more than one mate. It can pertain to women or men. So when you're in a polygamous relationship, you could be a woman with multiple men, which is polyandry, or you can be a man with multiple women, which is polygyny. So what we're discussing right now, and I think I've heard a lot of you say polygyny, but we're specifically discussing polygyny. The first thing I say about polygyny, whether you're pro polygyny or not, whether you're curious, is in any relationship, monogamous or polygamous, you need to have a foundation of respect, and the respect is what will hold it together. So that goes across the board for any type of marriage. If there is no respect, it won't work out. So that for me is the foundation, and what I tell women about polygyny. I counsel several women. I've counseled several dozens and dozens of women throughout the years who have been like our sister Sarah and other sisters I've seen speaking, you know, they're on the fence. And their husband is like, I want to go and do this type of relationship. So what I did today, before the stream, is I made a list of what I call polygyny myths. Now, don't get me wrong. All of the things about a sister wife being able to help with children, being able to help with the house chore load, all of that is true. However, as women, we're talking about women of the West. And by the way, a lot of our continental sisters on the continent of Africa, they're catching up with the women of the West. And when I say of the West, I mean, of course, even the Caribbean, of course, where you are, the UK, Europe, and America. So I'm talking about Western ideals. We know about the ancient ways. We know about all the perks about having a man can have more babies. I do talk about that, and I do teach that when I'm promoting polygyny. But what I've done lately is really focus on the woman and her feelings, her concerns, and her Western ideals. We're part of a Westernized society. And the reason I say that is we have to really face the facts that women are hypergamous. So we want to always marry up, you know, the fairy tale, you marry the Prince Charming, you live happily ever after. We're naturally hypergamous. We always want to be, naturally, we want to marry up. When I say that, he doesn't have to be filthy rich, but we want the security, even if we have our own careers, we want to know that a man can give us a comfortable life and give our progeny, his offspring, his children, a comfortable life. So that's the main thing I like to approach women with. I don't skirt around it like I used to, because I used to try to be on the fence and be more politically correct, because I did really, and I still do, want to stand for the men who innately are polygynist. So women are hypergamous, sisters, and men are polygynous, meaning men like to have multiple women. It's just something that's innate. We have to face these facts. So this is what I'm trying to say. When we realize, listen, if he's going to have more women, he's going to have to give me a comfortable life as well as pay attention to me, because that's another thing about women. If we don't get attention, if I don't feel adored, I don't care if you have 1,000 wives. If I don't feel like the number one, not going to work out. That's what I say to my sisters that I counsel, and to couples. If he cannot take care of you financially and make you feel special, I don't mean like, okay, you got a hot dog, you got a hot dog. No, I mean, if he's got multiple wives, he's going to have to take care of you just like he has one wife that he loves, takes care of the children, and pampers, because we're women. That's what we like. Okay. So when we look at it that way, all the other perks of having someone to help us with the children, having someone to help us with the chores, all of that is secondary, because this is what I've had a lot of women tell me. I can get a maid, I can get a nanny. So that argument doesn't, or I'm sorry, those points don't always hold up when you're trying to work out moving into a polygynist relationship. So I'm going to give you one more piece of information, and then you can discuss it or react to it. Another myth of polygyny is, I say myths, is that a man can have as many wives as he wants. And I love the question that Sarah asked, what about the wife? No, you have a choice. You always have a choice. And yes, there are many men sneaking around because we're not doing polygyny correctly. They've already established wives. They've already had children. So it becomes complicated and there's a lot of problems involved. So if you're starting fresh, you meet somebody who says, listen, I'm honest, I do want to do polygyny. So you need to sit down with that man and say, okay, we're going to have to establish how many wives are going to be in this relationship. Just like you do in a monogamous marriage. You don't have to, what said, he's got 2 wives and he said to you, I only want this other wife And the next thing you know, he's coming to you and he's saying, you know, I found a third wife. If he established with you in your marriage, this is talking about individuals, in your marriage, that he only wanted 2 wives, now there's an issue that he has to really come to you and explain, why are you making this change? So we have power. That's what I'm trying to say. It is very empowering when women know, okay, my husband has the right, natural right, not the right, it's a privilege. Let me say this. When you are married to a man or in your relationship, you give him the privilege of polygyny. But as a man, an individual, it's his God-given right, because men can, like all the points I've brought up, men can reproduce with more than one woman, but it's not his right with you as an individual woman. It's not his right with Neeks, Sarah. No, it is his privilege. He has to come to you and say, do you want to do polygyny? Okay. 2 wives, 3 wives? Okay. So you see what I'm saying? So this is what we need to discuss. I love my beautiful sisters. Those are all honest, true points about men being able to, you know, the menstrual cycle, the extra daycare. But we really, as women, need to really start approaching this where we feel comfortable. And so if we could talk about polygyny in that way, then I think we would make more, you know what I'm saying, cover more ground. So I'm throwing that out there and seeing if we can discuss it in a more Western realistic way, where women aren't just sitting there going, oh, I wonder when I'm going to get to sleep with my husband. Oh, well, you know, maybe I'll get a hat today. She got new shoes. No, you know what I mean? So, all right, sisters, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to you. Anybody want to chime in? You can.
Yeah, I really like the points you raised there. Is it Napa? Napa?
Yes, Napa.
Napa. Okay. Yeah, for me, I'm curious to know how it would work in the West with our westernized thinking. I don't know that it would work in the West, but for me, I feel at this perspective, I would happily have a traditional marriage, but I don't know if it could work here. But again, if I am elsewhere, my mindset would have to shift into a space at being okay with it. But it all comes down to the open honesty of it all, and I think that's a massive factor, which I think it's almost like polygamy. It's kind of like this whispered, this hush hush thing, when actually, as you say, it could be quite an empowered setup to have, but it just needs to have more open and honest discussions such as this around it, because I think once everybody knows where they are, then fantastic, because as Sanuka mentioned, it's very, polygamy is happening, but maybe the women do know or don't know, but it's not an open discussion, therefore it can create the problems that arise. But I think if everybody is honest with everybody else and honest with themselves and how they would actually feel about it, then it's a totally different conversation.
Right. And real quickly, what you said about honesty, that's the part of the respect. Yes, you will. That's another one of the myths, by the way. A man who his wife agrees to polygyny, he may just get another wife. If he has 2 wives, he'll get a 3rd wife and not tell the wives. That is not good. That is actually, you know, you're cheating. So that's a myth. Some myths said like a man can't cheat. When you're lying and when you're not being honest, you're cheating me because I'm your partner, or we're your 2 other wives. You should be honest when you bring someone else in. So I just wanted to jump in and say wonderful point with the honesty thing. Yes.
Can I just quickly say, though, it's not the man's choice to choose a 2nd or 3rd wife. It's for the 1st wife to choose that. And that's how I'm talking from a traditional aspect. So it's not the man goes out and finds a woman and says, yes, he wants it. No, because marriage is not between 2 individuals. It's between families, it's families coming together. So traditionally, it would be the first wife choosing the second and third wife.
Right. I do want to jump in and talk about that. And remember, now that is true in some cultures, because there are matriarchal cultures where the woman chooses the wife. But again, we're talking realistically. You could definitely bring I've had friends that I said, dang, I wish you were my sister wife. But anyway, you can bring a friend in. You don't have to be, it depends on how you do it. Bring around your husband if you want to bring a sister wife. However, men have the right to choose, who they want to marry, just like women have the right. Think about it. You wouldn't want your husband bringing, we don't do polyandry. Well, I don't know about anyone else. You wouldn't want your husband bringing somebody to you saying, I want you to marry this person. No, you're doing this polygamy or, this polyandry. I wouldn't want anyone bringing someone to me saying, I have to marry this particular man. So it gets, we want to keep it balanced where we don't infringe on anybody's rights, so to speak. So I don't recommend telling sisters, you get to pick the wives and he doesn't. But I do say, hey, work it out with your husband. If he's okay with that, I'm going to tell you, from experience, 9 times out of 10, that doesn't work. What you'll get is he's getting frustrated. He'll pick the woman that you want, that you bring to him, and then he'll go hide and start seeing somebody that he does want to be with out of resentment. That's just what I've seen happen in those types of situations. So yes, in a traditional African culture and matriarchal cultures, the woman picks the other woman and the man just is okay. But we're talking about, Western society. And so I recommend that if you want to bring a sister in that you like, bring her in, but don't expect to have your husband, who usually, by the way, in most polygynous relationships, we have women who are somewhat traditional where they think, the man is the head. So that doesn't fit with, I'm saying usually, there are probably relationships that are not like that. But usually if you're trying to do polygyny, the man is the head of the marriage, not the tyrant, not somebody beating you over the head, and you're not a doormat, but he is the head. So it typically, I've seen, it hasn't worked out where a woman says, okay, we'll do polygyny, but I get to pick the women. The man will say, okay, just so he can do polygyny, but down the line, you'll see some problems arise. So that's just my actually professional or personal experience with polygyny. Not personal experience in my life, but seeing that. But I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm just throwing that out there. I respect what you said, Kasati. I'm just letting sisters know. Often when you tell a man we can do polygyny, but I get to pick all the women, he starts to become dishonest, resentful, and then we have the cheating going on. So
could I just say,
yes.
listening to the two different versions, because that's what it's coming across as. We've got the traditional cultural one, and then we've got the westernized one. And what came to mind, it was a case of, as in most things, it depends on how you interpret it, or you might water it down to make it convenient for yourself. So
Right.
It may start off one way, but we're thinking, I do like the idea, but, and then we start to tweak it and twerk it and to make it convenient for ourselves, then it becomes diluted, and then the main theme or the original gist seems to just go out of the window, because I'm hearing the traditional and I'm like, oh, but then you're hearing the modern and you're like, So it's like between the two of them, it's like, and I think it's just mankind and what they do. They do it in religion, they do it in law, where they'll take a piece and then they will make it convenient for themselves to twist it. They'll interpret it how better benefits them. I'm not quite sure, but that, it's just interesting to hear, because it's like two different types, two different versions of the one thing type.
Wow, that's a good point. And you know what? That's exactly correct. Because what even with me, I started, the more I encountered more couples, more women who were like, this isn't working out. You need a strong foundation. You even need contracts. Some people say, okay, polygyny is illegal. No, polygyny isn't illegal. Bigamy is illegal in the United States, where you go to different courts and get legal documentation through the judicial system as saying you're married. But what you mentioned, Sarah, in a polygynist, I say polygynist, meaning the man and you're in the relationship. In a polygynist relationship, you must have contracts and a full understanding, because as you said, you notice things start changing. Wait, we didn't want to do it this way. Wait a minute. When we first started, this is how it was. So that's a great point. And you know, that's with monogamous marriage as well. You know, when you come in, you said we're going to be this way, and maybe you didn't. Everyone, I think, should have some tenets to follow in their marriage, whether it's monogamy or polygyny. You need to sit down and say, okay, you're going to do this way. I'm going to do this way. We're going to do this together. And that way you can always go back to not just a marriage contract from the court, but you can go back and say, can we go over our contract where you said you do this and that? That's a great point. So yes, things change. We change things as we go to be able to survive. Because honestly, Sarah, so many women have tried polygyny in the West, especially through religion. Hebrew Israelite women that I've met, I'm talking about our people. Mormons do it, but a lot of sisters, they've been abused. Women have been, they're right, you know, walked all over, told, oh, you have to work. That's another one of the myths. Some men tell women, we need to pull all, and this isn't, if you do this in your marriage, do it. But when a man tells you, you're gonna work, she's gonna work, I'm gonna work, and we have to do it where we bring all our money together, and that's gonna be why I'm doing poly. Now that's a great way to live. I don't think it's wrong, but it should not be something that you're told as a woman, this is why we need to do poly, because we all have different incomes and we bring it together. No, this is what I stand on. If you want to have an extra wife, you need to take care of us. I need to be comfortable, not just struggling, not just scooting by, not me paying half the bills. I need to be comfortable, and I need to be make a choice. I choose to give you money, but I don't have to. So I don't know. I kind of went into that because a lot of people come into polygyny and say, you know, the woman has to also contribute to the finance. And that's one of the most egregious for me. I think that's the worst, because what are you getting as a woman? Let's be honest. It's a give and take. I do believe that men innately by God were designed to have more than one woman. But I know that as a woman, I'm not just going to be, you know, what do I get? You get to have multiple wives. I can take care, I'm gonna tell you this, I can take care of my babies myself. You understand? Like at the end of the day, I can take care of my babies. My mom took care of 8 children. A lot of women have a lot of children. What really am I gaining? What really am I gaining? You need to pay attention to me. You need to love these women all the same. I want the romantic night like Susie Q got it. I want the vacation on the beach, just like my sister Kasati or Neeks got it. So that makes a man sit back and go, oh, this is real. And by the way, never, ever, ever, ever let a man come into, if you meet a married man and he says, oh, my wife is okay with polygyny, never take the word from him. You must say, okay, I want to sit down with her. I want to meet her. I want to respect her. So there's a lot of stuff that, like you said, someone said my saying, I think it was Sanuka, unpack, but I'm going to hand it over back to you, mute out for a minute and let you ladies just, you know, discuss all that I've thrown out. Just let me know. I want to get some more feedback, what you think about it. You don't have to agree on it, but what do you think about like what Sarah said, the difference between the traditional and the more realistic, westernized polygyny that that is now being presented. I'm not the only one presenting it this way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, if I can.
Hi there.
Agree.
Okay.
To me, it seems very hard to do in the West. I'm not saying, I mean, obviously you have example and you meet people that are doing it, but to me, it sounds extremely far-fetched. Again, like I'm currently based in the UK. I don't know many men that can provide for more than one family, for more than one wife. So for me, as you say, it's not just like, you know, the romantic side and everything. I'm thinking about the children, you know. Children cost a lot of money to raise in the West, you know. So it's all good to say, yeah, men, they can just plant their seed and that's bloodline, that's what they want. But those children need to be looked after, catered for, you know, if you want to pay an education for them and everything. And thinking, taking your family on holiday and everything, all this costs money. And I don't know many men that have the means to support more than one family. So for me, it's like, I don't see why would one man wants to have more than, I mean, he will break his back trying to earn money, even though the woman would work. It's just like, as you're saying, it's like his main responsibility will be to provide for his family. So, you know, the woman, when she'll be pregnant, or if, you know, they have many children, she might take a little step back and look after the family. So he has to have the means to provide for them. So for me, it's like, oh, I don't know. I don't see it done. I understand how in Africa, because they live closer to the land and a different structure in terms of their communities and things like that it makes sense. But here, I don't. Yeah, I'm struggling to. I grew up in and when I was at school, in primary school, I had a friend that was from Mali, and then was Atuma, and she was from a polygyny family. So a father had 3 wives, and they were living in that flat where basically it was overcrowded because it, you know, there was not enough room for the number of children and the number of wives. And her mom was the 3rd wife, but her mom was still in Mali, or it was still on the continent. And because her mom wasn't there, she was mistreated by the other 2 wives, and she ended up being the one doing most of the house chores. So that's why my thing is like, yeah, but no, you know, I don't see it working so well in the West, because to afford a proper accommodation to accommodate all of the wives, all of the children, her father just didn't have the means. He just didn't have. So then you have, what kind of lifestyle is that? What can, you know? I don't think it was very healthy, and I haven't really seen it worked. And I feel like, you know, it's nice for us to try to get back to our tradition and things like that. But really, we need to think about the children and what we're going to put the children through, you know.
Good point.
It's all nice to say, oh, I want a husband, I want to be loved and everything. Okay, we're thinking, oh, maybe having sister wives will help us raise our children, but there's other way to get support for raising children than just having a sister wife. So,
see, that's what she just said. See, let me say some things here. When I talked about the vacation, see, I'm westernized, and I can do the whole, you know, minimalism life. And I'm not saying me personally, but I'm putting it on the level where a man needs to know this. Don't think you're going to come in and like the example Nellie gave, we're going to live in 1-bedroom house, babies are hungry. No, if you are doing poly, a man has to come in and say, I don't want that for my children. I don't want that for my wives. So when I throw it out there and say, you got to be able to take me on the vacations and things like those are things that Western people do. you know, westernized people, people in the UK, people in the United States, people in Canada. Now, so I just want people to realize, I'm not saying you have to be materialistic, but you need to have you need to let the man know you're going to have these other women. You said you and I are going to have this lifestyle, then you and I and Susie are going to have this lifestyle. You're not going to diminish our lifestyle when you take on a wife. So if you're okay, you know, with your minimalist lifestyle and it works out, whatever lifestyle you and your wife agree to, it has to stay that way. There was a point that I lost my train of thought, but it's very important. I wanted to speak about something you had mentioned, Nellie, early on. I think you said she was raised in a polygynist, your friend. My father was a polygynist. He's transitioned by this since he transitioned when I say was. Now, my mother, she was not ideally, she wasn't like, oh, polygyny is the way for me. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. See, it came to me. Okay, so this is the thing. Polygyny, why would a woman really say, okay, I'll let my husband have another wife? When I say let, remember, it's a privilege. If you're married to me, I'm letting you do that with me. Yeah, it's your God-given right, but if I don't want to do it, you go find somebody who will let you do it. Get it? So you do have power. You can't, a man can't just tell you, God made me. I have millions of sperm throughout my life, which is true. Okay, but I don't like it, so go that way. If I like it, I'm giving you the privilege. So I digress. The reason we let our husbands marry, I'm gonna say it again, marry other women, they're part of our lives, is because we know I don't want my husband sleeping around or sneaking around. That does decrease the so-called risks of your husband looking around for other women, because he's got more than one woman. He's got that variety. So we want to keep that in mind. Am I saying that men are animals that can't control their lust and they can't be monogamous? No, not at all. A man can be monogamous, but if we know innately that God designed him in a certain way, we know innately that he is polygynist, we need to, if we want to be balanced, we need to keep that in mind and say, well, okay, then let's go ahead and get another wife. So I wanted to say that because the reality is, as much as we may not like it, men desire more than one woman. I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but they do. Even the ones who are monogamous, they say, nobody's better than my wife. Men program themselves to do that. Imagine the marriages that have lasted for 50 years. 50-year marriages. I hope I don't offend anybody, especially the mama, the 84-year-old elder who was on the phone. But if you've been married for 50 years, it's a high chance that your husband has had a sexual relationship with a woman in those 50 years. Even if it's just a one-night stand, maybe a couple one-night stands, maybe a woman that he has on the side that he never told you about and he has a whole family. So when you take on polygyny as a woman, you get power in who if he's being honest, you get to have the power and to say, so, okay, I like her. I like Nellie. I want Nellie to be my sister wife. Nellie respects my marriage. That's another thing. Then you get to say, that woman doesn't respect my marriage. You need to not be with her. And then he says, you know what? If he loves you and respects you, says, you're right. She doesn't respect the marriage that we already have. I'm going to go on to somebody else. So that's the thing, about, I wanted to talk about, we're getting back to the trust thing. When a man can have more than one wife, the benefit for us is it decreases the chances of him being practicing infidelity. Now, anybody, I want to hear from anybody who doesn't agree with that, and I want you to give the other side. Everything I'm saying isn't set in stone, ladies. I'm just one woman.
I'm going to come to you on that one. It's Tanuka. Hi, Napa.
Peace to you, sister.
A couple things I wanted to ask, and so probably I'll do it in reverse, but when I finished, if you could, or maybe do it first, actually, have you got, in your experience, real life experiences of polygynous marriages that work in the sense where the women are broadly satisfied? No one's ever properly satisfied, broadly satisfied with their marriages, and that the marriages last. And when I say last, I mean, for example, if there's 3 wives, that maybe for a good period of time, there's 3 wives, like 10 years, not that there's 3 wives and like 5 years later, there's 2 wives and then there's a different 3rd wife or whatever. But, you know, like say 3 people, and those 3 people are the same, or say 2 wives and 1 husband. And those are the 3 people that persist together for maybe 10 years and they're broadly satisfied with that relationship or more, you know?
Do I know that any polygynous families?
Like in the West,
that
like the thing, yeah, that they persist like that, and that it's you know.
Oh yes, I do. I know several. Some one is actually in the UK, believe it or not, and then the others are in the United States.
And the other question.
So when I say several, it's Sanuka.
Yeah,
is that how you say it?
Yes.
When I say several, about 6 families.
Okay, no, that's good. And I think, you know, different people can do different things, but I personally, as a people person, and I've worked with people for many, many years and looked around life, people watch, I would say that I think it's a myth to say that because a man can have more than 1 wife, that would affect his fidelity. Because, you know, my mom used to say the eyes of greedy men are never satisfied. And therefore, whether you're monogamous or polygamous, I think if you're greedy, you're greedy. And I don't think that whether a man has, say, for example, you're saying a man always wants more than 1 woman. So say he has 3 wives. When is he gonna, when it, you know, if you're saying it's a set thing that a man wants more than 1 woman, then okay, after 3 years, 5 years, when's he going to get bored of the 3 wives if that's the case? And then want a different wife? Do you see what I mean? So I think the concept of fidelity has got to be self-control, respect, all these other things. Whether you're monogamous or polygamous, I don't think the same thing you said, you know, if a monogamous marriage of 50 years persists, I think the same way, if you have a polygamous marriage of 10 years, 50 years, then I doubt very much if that man, you could say, was only slept with the wives that were official wives in whatever time period that is. So I think that, you know, I don't think it's an advantage to say that if you're in a polygamous relationship, the person's going to have fidelity, because the fact that he's got 2 choices, well, you know, some people eat cake, some people eat a box of chocolate, and some people will eat 1 chocolate. You know, I don't think that that's going to add to fidelity, knowing human nature. In fact, it might be better when you only eat 1 chocolate or no chocolate, then you discipline yourself. When you start eating 3, then you might want the whole box. So it might encourage more infidelity in that way. If you're used to saying, oh, well, you know, what I like, I get, then you might say, well, I like a 4th woman. Let me try that one and introduce it as a wife and go on, or have that one on the side. Maybe I'm supposed to be visiting my 3rd wife, and then I go see number 4 on the side because my other 2 wives think that I'm visiting another wife. So I don't think that I don't think that necessarily would encourage me to think, oh, if I have a 2nd wife, he's only going to deal with me and that wife. I think the person is going to have integrity, irrespective of monogamous, polygynous relationship, you know?
Right. Yeah, you know, and I hear you. That's why I said in the beginning, you need to have respect if it's monogamous or polygynous. I'm talking about, and I thank you for that input. I'm talking about if a man already has 2 or 3 wives, statistics, the chances of him wanting a 4th wife, I mean, it happens, you're right. But then you have to examine who this man is. Because now he can't say, you know, I want, you know, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to have variety. Because now a man has been given the privilege from his wife to be the man that he's hardwired to be. So when you see a man who can't, and especially that's very common what you're talking about, Sonuko. I'm not saying that men don't just keep going trying to amass all these wives. That happens. But then that's where you look at this person.
I wasn't saying wives, I was saying having women on the side, because a wife comes with responsibility. I was talking about the fidelity thing.
Well, the fidelity thing, it does, usually a man is cheating because his wife doesn't want him to have any other wives.
I disagree there. A man cheats because of what he wants, not what his wife agrees with, whether he's got 1 or 2 wives or 3 wives.
No, what I'm saying is,
relationship
usually
where the man's got
cheating,
several wives and he still cheats.
Usually he's cheating on, yes, thank you. Usually he's cheating on the 1 wife or the 2 wives because he's not honest. So usually a man cheats because he's not allowed to have more than 1 wife. That's usually why. Because if he has 2 wives and you agree, okay, I'm not going to go too deep into the fidelity part because I've already spoken about monogamy and polygyny. Men can cheat. We know that.
100%. I agree.
My point is, if a man already is given the privilege to have more than 1 wife in his marriage, okay, his wife has established, yes, you can, I want to practice polygyny with you. If he's not insecure, if he doesn't have other issues, we're talking about people who are sound, of a sound mind. Now that's not everybody. Who isn't, a man who isn't dysfunctional. He sat down with the woman, he said, you know, I want to do polygyny. He's got 3 wives. Typically, a man doesn't go out and try to get a 4th wife. Does it happen? Yes. Does he cheat? Yes, he does. But when a man has been, when you're in a relationship with a man who respects you, he respects you and loves you. Forget about the polygyny right now. It could be monogamy, polygyny. He one-on-one with you, respects you and loves you. Okay? And then you say, okay, you can do polygyny. He's going to appreciate that you did that. Now we're talking about, yeah, he can control himself. He's not going to go out. My wife let me have another wife. Why would I go out and do that to her? I respect her. Now let's dial back to the man who the wife says, no other wives. That's typically what women are. I mean, we know that we live in a monogamous society where marriage is generally monogamous. So I think you missed my point. What I'm saying is, in a monogamous relationship, if a woman says, no, I'm leaving if you get another wife, we see a lot of infidelity. I'm talking about typically. I'd be naive, and everyone would be naive to believe that if a man has 2 wives, he won't ever cheat. That's not my point. But logically, if you respect your wife, you wanted to have another wife, she said fine, why would a man logically, if he respects his wife and loves her, sneak around and have sex with other women when she's saying, I don't have a problem with you having multiple women. Why are you lying and cheating? So I think that maybe I didn't impart myself well, but I'm going to say this again. In a polygynous relationship, it is less likely for a man to lie and cheat on his wife by having sex with other women than it is for a one-on-one monogamous relationship. That's what I'm trying to say with that point. But I get what you're saying, Sanuko. People can cheat in any way, but it's less likely because you've established, you've taken that off the table. Why do you want to cheat? Now,
fundamentally, I think the perspective I'm coming from with looking at life and what I've seen over the years, no matter what you put on the table, I don't think it has anything to do with it. Definitely logic has nothing to do with it, because when somebody cheats, whether they be male or female, you know, there's different reasons they cheat. Most of them, they've been driven by their emotions, whether those emotions are lust, greed, whatever it may be, sorrow. You know, people cheat, remember, even like when somebody's done something to them to upset them. It's not always greed. It could be sorrow, it could be any reason. So logic doesn't come into it when it comes to cheating. And maybe principles prevent people from cheating. So I don't think that logic will stop them from cheating. Principles should stop them from cheating. The principle of having respect and stuff, yes. But logic, I don't think logic comes into it, because when people cheat, that's why they do stupid things with stupid people, because logic goes out of the window. People destroy, whether it's polygamous marriages, monogamous marriages, through doing stupid things. So I don't think logic works. My thing on it is like, and I think Nelly touched on it, in this society in general, people can look for people, and there are good people out there. So the man you'd have to find, not only would they have to have the financial acumen for what you're saying, basically agreeing with the point that Nelly's making, you need to be able to afford to have more than one wife, but also they need to have the qualities, because you would have to have the qualities of being able to have that self-control, understand what you've entered into. And that's why I say for a polygamous relationship, it's harder, because you've got, you know, more than one person you're dealing with. But the other factor that we haven't factored in, and I think we need to be honest as women can be bitches. Let's put it that way. They can be really nasty to one another. And therefore, we haven't factored in, you can sit down with another woman and say, oh yeah, but you would have to have the qualities in the women as well as the men to avoid what Nelly was saying, for example, with her friend from school. And I've seen that happen with children on many occasions. So if you're talking about polygamy, does the man have the understanding to understand human behavior, to ensure that the women will be treating each other well, treating the children well if one wife should unfortunately pass away or be incapacitated through illness, you know, whether temporarily or whatever. So you have all those factors that need to be looked at as well. You know, do you have somebody who has the heart? As a woman, actually, what you actually need is not so much you want the man to love you. You have to have a lot of love in your heart, so that if the man falls out of love with you, what do you do with the children he leaves you with? This is the reality. Right. Say, for example, yeah, your wife's number 2 or number 1, and the man decides, because no matter what he agrees, any of us can change what we agree. And if he leaves you with the 3 children from the second wife and goes off with wife number 3, he just leaves 2 of you, goes. Wife number 1 or 2 is not around. So you've got children from another wife, whichever number wife it is, and he disappears. Do you have that love to know that you're going to treat these children as the brothers and sisters of your children, as your children? So I think as women, we have to look at our qualities, because we're not in control of a man's behavior or any other human's behavior. We're only in control of our own. So I would say, looking at what I've seen around, any woman that wants to entertain polygyny will have to understand, let's go to the worst scenario. The man leaves you with those children, whether by design, whether he passes away, whatever it may be. Will you be able to look after another woman's children as your own? So those are things.
Yeah, those are good points. Yeah, those are very good points, sis. And I do want to make sure I agree with her. You can't come into any marriage if a man doesn't have good character, or if a woman doesn't have good character. So 100%, it has to be a quality person. What I'm doing right now is approaching this to the women. Yes, good point. Any sisters want to chime in about the nightmares of polygyny? Feel free, like Nellie did. You know, if you've seen nightmares or women being bitchy toward each other, I've seen plenty of that. So I agree with you, Sanuko. Thank you very much for those points. Just knowing that men they naturally want to sleep with other women. You know, that's where I was coming from with the whole thing about if he's getting an extra wife or another wife, it's off the table about him having to sneak around and get the variety. So, but yeah, because it's not just about sex. You did say something about the cheating. You know, there are a lot of reasons people cheat, and one of the main reasons women cheat because they are neglected. I'm not saying it's right, but they feel neglected. They feel like they're not being treated with the attention that they should get, or not being appreciated. That's one of the number one reason women cheat. One of the number one reason men cheat is because they want variety. So then those are facts as far as human nature and relationships, as far as if you look at society. So yeah, great input. I appreciate. Sanuko, I want to ask you, did you say you're pro polygyny, or did you say you're on the fence, or not for? I don't remember.
None of the above. I don't think it's something that someone is pro or against or believes in. I think it's something that somebody has to look at and say, is it right for them? So I'm not pro it. I think if people think that it suits their lifestyle, and I would only sort of like this kind of input from yourself, somebody who has experience of it, you've grown up in it, I think is very good. So that, say, for example, if there's a sister on the call where they've met a man and the man is suggesting it, it will give an idea, or if somebody does suggest it, I'm not pro or against it. I think it has to be a person looks at it. Do they think it suits their lifestyle? Is it something that will suit their lifestyle? Do they see they'll get a benefit from it? And is that benefit what they want? So for example, you were saying that, you know, the person will need to be able to, I agree. If you can't afford it, I think it's ridiculous, because you're just inviting poverty, and poverty is going to cause problems. So even that in itself will cause problems in any relationship. But you know, the kind of things that you said you want, are those things important? So if those things are not important to you as a woman, then that would be pointless if you think that's a benefit. So you would have to look, my question would be, what would be the benefit to you as a woman entering polygamy? So if there's a benefit that the woman can perceive, then that's an individual woman's decision. I would never say I'm pro or against it, because it depends on where you are in your life, you know, emotionally, financially, spiritually, geographically, you know, to see whether that is something that suits you. So I wouldn't be pro or against it. For me personally, it wouldn't suit me, but because I've been in a monogamous marriage for many, many years, so it's not something that would suit me, you know, because for example, what good would it be at this stage of my life for my husband to say, oh, I'll be able to keep you ever? Well, yeah, we've already been contributing, two of us together. So anything that he could give a woman would be mine, right? And being as I don't want to be a lesbian, no disrespect to any lesbians on the call, I don't see why I'd be keeping another woman. So, you know, if you're younger and you're starting out, it would be different. So I'm saying different people in different phases, but I know women who are of my age group who maybe have decided, or their relationships come to an end, and they say they wouldn't mind being in a polygynous relationship now. So that's why I'm saying I wouldn't say I'm for it, against it. I think each individual person has to look at their circumstance and say, does it suit me? Does it benefit me? You know, because if it doesn't benefit you, then it doesn't make sense. And when I say benefit, I mean holistically, spiritually, and then physically, and then emotionally. You know, does it benefit you? Is it going to enhance your life? Because if it's going to bring your life down, then any relationship you're in is going to be to the detriment of that relationship. So I don't think it's something
Right.
we can believe in. I think it's going to be something that enhances. And if for example, the example you gave, security, and as I say, people in Merita and many traditional places, India, everywhere, you know, they're looking for security. And if that security is there, if the respect is there, and if the children are being well looked after and they're grown up in that environment, then if it suits you as a woman, then, you know, that's something you can go for, demand, and if you can. And so I wouldn't say I'm pro or against it. For me personally, it doesn't suit me because of where I am in my life and the kind of personality that I have, the way I'm brought up. I don't think it would ever have suited me. But if you've been brought up in it, it's different. So I think we have to be honest about ourselves and the type of person that we are. And that's, I think, is the important thing. But if you want, just one other point, if we look at the society that we're in now, we have a society where 2 men can adopt children, 2 women can adopt children, and things like that. So therefore, for me to say that, oh, I don't believe in or agree with a polygamous relationship in a world where the actual boundaries of what is a family or not a family is completely changing, wouldn't make any sense. I would just say each person be honest with yourself. Don't look for a man's honesty. Look for your own honesty with your own self as to what you can realistically put up with. Because a lot of women say, oh, I wouldn't mind joining in polygamy. Okay, but is that real? You may come from a background where it's a bit more realistic. You've seen it in action growing up. Polygyny, do you see what I mean? So you will see, oh, how do people have to behave in order for this to work? But for someone outside, it can be a bit of a fantasy. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? They like the man.
Not the fantasy part.
No, not for you.
I get what you're saying. Let me just jump in real quick. I just want to just, right, let me jump in and say this. In the beginning, I agree with you. I said, and I want to reiterate, because I don't know if we're on the same page here. I want to bring some other people into the conversation. In the beginning, I said, you have to be able to make the choice on what you want. So I agree with you. People, it doesn't matter, monogamy, polygyny, you have to get the respect from your partner. So yes, we're on the same page with that. As far as pro-polygyny and me and my experience, I'm pro-polygyny because I believe it is a really good way for family building. Oh, wait a minute. Remember I came in, I said, we're not going to talk like that, kind of said that, but no, it doesn't mean that I'm against it. It's a great way to build a tribe, to strengthen sisterhood. Let me say it again. It is a great way to strengthen sisterhood. But before I get into all of that talk, I'm doing what I'm doing now, and what I've been doing lately is really talking to women about women and what women benefit from polygyny. You had said something about you can't control the man, you can only control yourself, or something like that. That's not exactly true in a marriage, which you know. When you come in a marriage, you have to lay the groundwork. Like you with your marriage, you have to be clear on what you want. And in polygyny, it's even harder. Somebody, I think it was Sarah or somebody else, Nellie, said it's very complicated. Yeah, it's a complicated type of marriage because you have so many different people in it. So you must come in with what you said, Sanuko, that self-respect, that quality people who are on the same page, and you need to lay the groundwork and say, this is my marriage. I do control what goes on in here. When you start saying in a marriage, I can only control myself, well then, what are you in this marriage? You become one, so we got to do this teamwork thing. So I'm not trying to, we align, you and I, Sanuko, align on most 99% of everything. But that part about, let's look at the women and we can be the BITCHs. We know all that, but see, I'm coming to polygyny with women, empowering women, letting women know there's a benefit. There's a benefit to this. where your man can be happy being a polygynist, and you can be happy getting, because you know how it says happy wife, happy life? Well, happy husband, being able to be a man and have more than one woman, he treats you better. Or if he doesn't, then you shouldn't be in that marriage. If he takes on another wife and then you become like the lady in Color Purple, you remember the one, I don't know if you've seen Color Purple, the one comes, I forgot her name, she's a jazz singer.
Yeah.
And then Whoopi Goldberg is cooking and told you're ugly. No, and that does happen in a lot of polygynous relationships.
That's correct. What I was trying to say, that's what I was trying to say, that if you enter it, I agree with what you're saying, that, you know, people can't do it one, but I'm saying ultimately, if somebody changes or shows a different face, the only ultimate thing you can say is, okay, I'm not going to be in it anymore. Because I'm saying that's what I meant when I say you can't control somebody. I didn't mean that in the marriage you should have, but I'm saying ultimately somebody can vote with their feet. So therefore, I'm saying if you enter something where there's now multiple children, I'm saying to me, you should always look on it and say, well, what happens if he left, and if those children, if the wife died or left or got sick, even worse, if she got sick and you had to look after her, are you the kind of person that could do that? And if you are, then say, okay, I can do this then, because if the worst happened, I could still be there. Not that I'll be there for if you can send me on holiday and do this and do this. But what happens if something happened to him and he couldn't do that anymore? What would I then do? Do you understand? That's what I meant. I didn't mean that you would expect to be in a marriage. That I just meant that to me, that's the way I would look on life. That if you're in a marriage, the same way we say through thick and thin, that means it's not just you and your husband through thick and thin. It's you and your responsibility in a polygynous ones towards the other wife and the other wife's children. That's
well, yes, let me say this, Sanuko, that is understood. So let me clarify, because you're going back to this holiday thing. I don't know if that triggers you. Let me say this. See, when you come in,
an example.
let me just say this. Women have been coming in, like you said, I've seen it. So, and I appreciate, I love your input. Trust me, I love it. Because it's really a learning experience. A lot of women might be thinking these things that you're thinking on the panel. So thank you. I love the dialogue. So I want to say this though. The reason I put it in that perspective about hypergamy, and if you can't take care of me, and if you can't take me on holiday, because so many women have been told, well, it's about childbearing. Oh, just about taking care of other children. Yeah. Oh, honey, I want this other wife because, you know, you do need some help with the dishes, right? And cooking. That's why I agree with you, Sanuko. See, I'm learning in what I do, I'm listening to the women. I'm listening to sisters. And when you're told, you know, you're going to be able to be a mother to those children, and that's beautiful. The beautiful thing I say about polygyny is you have a sister wife, and ideally, hopefully, there are people who don't have children with polygyny, but your children are brothers and sisters. What more of a bond can you have with the woman? Don't compete with her. Don't try to make her children less than yours, because women do that. They do that, and that's wrong. But that's, I'm not, you know, I'm not approaching it from that right now, because what we have as sisters on the panel. See, if this was a panel of sisters who already are, I'm pro-poly, then I'd start talking about how do you take care of your sister wife's children? How do you understand? But I have sisters on here who are like, I don't know about it. What's the benefit for me? So that's why I'm coming from this angle. So yes, you should be able to love those children as your own. But see, the problem is somebody like Sarah or Neeks, who I don't know about polygyny. I'm just, sorry if I'm using your name, sisters. I just see you at the top. Okay. But let's say your man approaches you. Oh, baby, I want to do polygyny. You know, I looked at it. Well, what's in it for me? Well, you know, you do have a lot of housework. And if you're telling me you want to have another wife come in, because housework, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to be on that new woman. Why didn't you wash the dishes? Why don't you mop the floor? Now she's like, hey, I'm not a slave. So then there's that problem. So that's my point. Yes, housework, child rearing, it's great, but we cannot come in to tell sisters who are on the fence, well, you know, when I'm on my cycle, no. We need to let the sisters know. Women, what do you want? You want security. You want love. You want honesty. You don't want, think of the feeling, let's all tune in, men and women. It's devastating to find out that you're in a relationship with someone and they've been lying to you, sleeping with someone else. Even when you're in poly, when you find out, I can't believe you have been sleeping with her for all these years. I can't believe you have these children. That is why I'm coming from the angle of how can you think about what can we do? Why did he do that? Because he wanted another woman. Well, if he could have approached me, what do you say to him? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you do this? If he could approach me and say, listen, I'm wanting another woman. Ideally, it should be before you get married. If he does that in a marriage, you're in trouble, by the way. So you see how monogamy plays, it's not about really, Sanuko said something, I think I heard her say, you know, something about, it's about your relationship. Yeah, you said it's a choice. It's about your relationship. What do you want in your relationship? But with all that understood, you know that men, you see that if you don't see it, well, okay. But the makeup of the man, his biology, he can reproduce until the end of his life. In some cases, we've seen even after his life, women have, you know, taken the sperm of a man who's deceased and had a child. So my point is, we know a man is naturally polygamous. So we know a woman is naturally hypergamous. I'm not saying you have to send me on holiday, but I'm going to put it on the table. I'm putting the bar high. If you want that extra wife, great. But whatever lifestyle we have in the West, you're going to give me that lifestyle and you're not going to take away from it. I'm not going to be sitting in a 1-bedroom apartment or 2-bedroom apartment or a 4-bedroom house, paying mortgage, struggling to pay bills with you, and you've got this other woman. No, I will not do it. See, that's what triggers the hearts of women. Then you get to say, oh, I know who he's sleeping with, and I like her. I actually love her. Her children are my children's siblings. She is my sister. When I have problems, I don't have to get on the phone and call my girlfriend who could tell my business. I tell my sister wife. When I talk about, you know, my husband in the bed, I don't have to worry about my friend sneaking around the back door and trying to get a taste of his wares, because I'm talking to my sister wife. See, these are the things that I tell sisters. And I do believe that the house cleaning and the finance, in reality, yeah, we know, I'm talking, that's the thing. Yes, by the way, you don't have to be sitting eating bonbons while your husband is dying with 3 jobs, but you must let a man know, if you want these extra women, you're gonna have to give me what I want and not take away. Oh, by the way, that's scripture. There's a scripture that says, do not diminish her food, her clothing, and the sex that you give her, you know, the attention, the love. So that's scripture, that's in the Bible. So Sanuko, you're a gem. I love the other view. And I'd like to bring some other sisters in. I mean, this is just my experience, what I do, but I appreciate the dialogue. So never think that I'm in here saying, oh, my way is the ultimate best way. But, you know, I have seen it work, but polygyny is very hard. I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about my personal life. I'm just going to generally say I'm in a polygynist marriage with a polygynist man. And it's very it's very complicated at times because you have so many different personalities, but you do get in a rhythm and you get to know your sister wives. And it's just like getting to know your husband. No, I'm heterosexual. That's another myth that people think, oh, you have to sleep with your sister wife. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, Sanuko, I respect what you said, and another sister said it. It is your personal choice. I think it's ideal, but I don't push it on sisters. I don't say, Sanuko, you're wrong if you don't like poly. Your marriage is a failure. Actually, I admire the monogamous relationships because, I personally, because of my views, I find monogamous relationships to be very precious, like unicorns, in a sense, the ones that last. So I'll throw that out there. I'll leave it. I don't know if the elder mother on the phone, I don't know if she's married, but shout out to the women and the men who are making the monogamy work. But for me, I just think polygyny is more natural, and but it's hard. It is hard. So I said a lot. You can always jump in and cut me off. I'm not sensitive. I have tough skin, ladies. You can always cut me off, jump in, say, hey, Nepal, wait a minute. I want to say this. You're wrong. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's nearly jumping in again. So apart from potentially preventing your men cheating, what other benefit there is in a polygyny relationship? Because for me personally, how can I say? People cheat, but for me, it shows their quality and their character. I don't just see men out being that just go around, and because by nature they can reproduce until they die, that all they want to do is reproduce. I see men that want to settle down. Most of them will want to settle down and have a family and provide for their family, and they know what what they're able to do. They can't just stretch forever. So they know that once they've got their house and they have the children and they have the wife and they have things, it's already quite a lot for one person to have. So I don't see them as just necessarily just looking for another partner to cheat with, and that's not my experience with men. Like, that's not my experience with men. I've seen men and women both cheating, but that doesn't mean that that's all men are after. I don't buy into that. So when you say that, it's like, well, what else? What other benefits are there? If you can talk about that a bit more, that'd be useful.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. And I never want to come off saying men are like these lustful, hypersexual animals that, I need all these women. I don't want to come off as if I'm saying that, because men are very, very complex, very loving, emotional people. I know men don't like being this thing about, oh, you're emotional, you're a simp, but men are emotional beings just like we are. So the benefits, then we can talk about the sisterhood. It goes a long way. It's really, when you can get into a marriage and really respect and love another woman as a sister, that's invaluable. Then we get into the being able to trust your children with her, being able to cry on her shoulder. That goes a long way. It goes all the way to the end of your life. My mother said that her mother told her, if you just have one person, one real friend in life, you've accomplished something very great. That's what my grandmother used to tell my mom. So the other benefit is having a good connection with a woman who shares everything that you are. She's the wife that you are, because you have the same husband. She's the mother. And again, that it doesn't always have to be children. So, she can be the mother. She's your friend. She should be. She knows your husband just like you do. She might know him a little better. She might give you some tips. Oh, he said this to me. Oh, really? Oh, so that's what I need to do. It helps. It helps with this man, this being called a man. And I'm not trying to be funny. It
I would
helps
like
to
to say
have.
something, please.
Yeah.
Mama,
Excuse
go
me?
on, please. Yeah, go on, Mama. You can speak, please.
Oh, as I would say, Mama is speaking. The lady who is in control was asking about me concerning this marriage. I have been married twice, and both of them at the time. I had to bring up children, but it was no problem, even though it was hard. Concerning polygamy, I would not do it. I do not like it. I'm not saying anyone should not do it. But personally, from a young girl in the West, I did not like it. If my husband had to go with anyone, I would not be vexed with the woman. I would be at him, because I say he had the opportunity to refuse. Anyone can do what they like, but personally, I would be in that relationship. As an elderly person, what it's like in the West here. Many people have friends are the husband cheat on them. But personally, I would like to have in this relationship because the children would be suffered. Children would suffer. But there are many mothers do not like, as I've said before, you do not take on the next child. They would let the child feel as if the people, as first the mother turn the back, they begin to treat those children bad. And that is what I have to say concerning this.
Thank you, Mama.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you for your input.
Thank you. What you are saying, and it will do for many people, it would help. So the things that you say, it has opened my eyes, even at this stage, my eyes are being opened.
Mm-hmm. Yes, mamas, you're never too old to learn, isn't it?
That's it.
Mm-hmm. Is there anybody else that would like to say something, please, at this stage?
I don't want to be the only one talking. Sarah, did you want to add anything, Neeks and Sarah? Because as the conversation goes on, I'm curious looking at the two of you because you were both vocal about where you stand. First, Sarah, let me know, give us some input on the progression of the conversation. What are you taking from this?
I think I've definitely made the decision that it's not for me, purely because some of the points that were raised about thinking about oneself and knowing yourself enough to know whether or not that will work for you, that I know that it definitely won't work for me. It just seems quite messy for me. And complicated. And for me, I want my life to be as simple and as carefree as possible, sort of thing. So, it's about trying to make the decisions that will make your life easier, obviously to make you happy and all the rest of it. And sometimes that you'll have the saying that too many cooks can spoil the broth and all those types of things. And that's just what springs to mind with the polygamy, because it's interesting when 1 minute, I don't want to get her name wrong. 1 minute, I need to find her. I don't want to get her name. The initial lady that started to speak, Katsy, is that her name? When
Kasati, my dear.
Thank you. Sorry about that. When you initially started to speak and you were talking about the tradition of it and stuff like that, I was thinking, oh, very family orientated, and it sounded very secure, very loving, a very nurturing type of environment. And I was thinking, oh, I wasn't thinking of it like that. I was thinking of man just having his way and having plenty woman and living his best life. So when I heard that, I was like, and then Napa, when you came on and you were telling me, you were speaking about the Western version of it, and we realized, okay, so the traditional was that way, but nowadays it's more of this type of way. And I'm like, it's like it was definitely a no for me. It kind of reinforced my initial thoughts of the fact that it was more for a man's benefit than a woman's to a certain extent. That's what it seemed for me more. So I'm just thinking to myself, it just sounds like a very complicated situation to be in. And I know that for me, I like peace and quiet and simplicity, and there'd just be too much personalities and too much stuff going on. It'll hurt my head.
Oh yeah, there are several personalities, and I like that. I like that you can, yourself, you're confident. And you can, so then the privilege part, you wouldn't give a man a privilege to have another wife in your marriage. So that's beautiful. I do want to say the thing about the sisters and the tradition, you can incorporate that into your polygynist marriage. You can, there is the thing about, women helping women and the sister wives, but I'd like to be realistic with sisters.
Exactly, because I don't know any sisters that like the ones that you're referring to, because all my sisters are like myself, very westernized. So I have to go back to Africa or somewhere like that and re-educate myself, change my whole mental well-being and my train of thought and stuff. That is not going to happen. I have to be realistic. It's a case I've been married for 15 years. At the end of the day, you have your ups and downs in all scenarios of life. In the workplace, the people give me a headache and nightmare. My husband give me headache, nightmare. My children give me headache, nightmare. But it's just something that you have decided that you're going to engage into this relationship, into this marriage, into this union. And practically there are going to be ups and downs. So you just ride the waves at the end of the day. Every now and then you've got to check yourself, because all of us can take advantage of anybody if we're given the opportunity, because we're human beings, and human nature is you will try to get away with whatever you can. So as women, we got to check ourselves at the end of the day, because sometimes we can be OTT, miserable, moany, all the rest of it. And then also we've got to check the husband, because sometimes they can't check themselves. So for me, we are the ones who are normally in charge of. I was growing up in a household of many strong women. At the end of the day, my father was lovely, but he was a quiet man. He didn't like any confrontation or anything like that. He liked a simple life. And I seem to have married a man like my husband, very simple, quiet, doesn't want any confrontation. So that helps to check me, because I'm the fire in our relationship where he's the calm. So the balance is there to a certain extent. But for me, it's just about being realistic, and I'm open to hearing. I want the knowledge. I want to know what else is out there, because that will help me to make the best decision as to what works for me. So being on this panel, listening to all these experiences from you lovely ladies, absolutely fantastic, because now I can go and share the knowledge that I've received this evening. I can continue to share that, because it may help somebody. It may help them to make up their mind or to start thinking another way. So for me, from we've got the knowledge, it's our duty to impart it and share it and encourage each other to look into other ways that we can improve our lives, to make things better and to help one another. So for me, it's just a win-win in this situation of learning.
Beautiful, beautifully put.
Can I just say though, in regards to, regardless of one's age, say for instance, even if it was a young woman and she was infertile, she has a right to be married. And that man also has a right to increase his bloodline. So in that regards, polygamy could work. And as I said before, traditionally, it is the first wife having knowing her husband, knowing his likes and dislikes, will be the best one suitable for finding that second wife. Also, there are many elderly women nowadays who are marrying younger men. They should not go into that marriage expecting this young man to not also want to increase his bloodline. So therefore, having that thought that polygamy is there, existing, has existed for thousands of years in many cultures, then that is another way for him to increase his bloodline and still be with the wife who can no longer conceive. So anyway, we've got somebody who's just come in on the call, Theodora.
I do want to wait before they come in. I do want to come in behind and say that is absolutely true. A woman who cannot conceive, an older woman who marries a younger man, that is a great way for him to have a baby. But again, I'm seeing the realistic relationships. And what happens is, sadly, the older woman may get neglected if there's not a good foundation. And he's got him a new younger wife with this baby, and he doesn't have a baby with the older wife. So we have to keep those things in perspective. Yes, ideally, these are beautiful things to do. I don't discount this. I've seen it work, but I've also seen it cause problems. See, again, I'm going to come back, as Sarah said, she put it beautifully. I'm talking about Western women. We can do their surrogacy. You can get a surrogate mother. You don't have to bring a woman in to have your baby and make her a part of your marriage. So we have to be careful when a man, I hope the sisters get what I'm saying. All of these things I'm not against what the sister just said, but we need to be careful when a man comes in and says, well, I want a wife because you can't have babies, but she can. If you don't have a strong foundation in that marriage, you're going to be looking at this man, with this woman was his child, and you're sitting on the outside. I'm talking, is nobody getting this? You're going to see this man loving on somebody's baby, and you've already feeling insecure that you can't have children. Now she's giving him a child, and you're sitting there looking like you're older. She's got the baby, and you're looking and twiddling your thumbs. Now, does that always happen? No. But I like to show remember you said, what was it, Sanuka? Show the ugly. That happens a lot.
That
so
also
be careful.
does happen. But when you're working,
I'm almost done, sis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost done. Be careful when you come into poly. Like Sarah said, yes, it's complicated. If you can't do it, if you come into poly for any other reason besides, I know my husband likes to have sex with multiple women, then we'll build from there. If you come in, oh baby, I need a wife because we need a baby. Oh baby, I need another wife because we need to clean the house better. Oh baby, I need another wife because I want to be able to give you a break from cooking. Oh baby, I need another wife because when you're on your cycle, I can't. If he comes in with that, you're setting yourself up for some problems in your marriage. If you're not coming in understanding, we're doing this because he wants to have sex with another woman, and then we build from there. I have the right to pick and choose. If he brings her to me, oh, I don't like her. You understand? So yes, to the sisters, these are all true points. I'm not against it, but I'm talking to the women who are considering poly. Don't mess your marriage up, or don't come into something thinking, well, we do need a baby, or we do need a housekeeper, or we do need child. It's not going to work for you. You're going to be miserable. Now I'm getting real, because I feel like no. Yes, those points are good, but are you coming in understanding? I'm doing this for you want to know something, ladies? I'm different. I don't have a problem with my husband having sex with other women. I say, for me personally, what is poly for? So this man can be satisfied and have multiple women. So then I'm happy. Then he doesn't lie to me. Then he doesn't give me some spiel about, oh, I need you to not have to wash dishes every night. No, you don't need a maid. You don't need to have another woman in your life because you need a maid. You don't need another woman in your marriage because you need somebody to have a baby. You know that this man is marrying this woman because I want my husband to be able to have sex with more than one woman. Now, when that comes out, that a lot of sisters say, heck no, I don't want to do this. But then there's more to it. He's honest. He appreciates you more. It's a deeper, so yes, it is a tough relationship, but I like to double down. If you come into poly talking about all those great points and then you don't really see it for what it is, my husband wants to be with multiple women, then you're really setting yourself up for, you're selling yourself short. And we are queens. We are goddesses. We're the first gods on this earth as women. We're not bowing down by letting the man be a man, but when I come in, if you come in to me talking about, oh, it's just that I want you to have some time to yourself when you get off work, you're not being honest with me. You're a man. You want to have sex with extra women. So let's make it real. I don't want you being a whoremonger. I don't want you to be promiscuous. I want you to value the woman. I want you to respect the Black woman or whatever woman you want. I want you to respect women. And if you're going to sleep with these women, you're going to take them on as wives. And you're going to take care of us. If you cannot do that, then you don't need to be with me. You need to be with someone else. So I promise I just want to drive that home, because we can't go around talking about women are miserable. I'm telling you. Now I'm going to talk to you about my counsel. I wasn't going to do. There are women miserable, wanting to kill themselves because their husbands told them, we need an extra wife because somebody take care of kids. And he's not paying attention to them anymore. They don't feel loved anymore. He lies to them. He sneaks off with the other wife. They team up against the women. These are the ugly parts of poly. Because why? Because the woman didn't come in knowing this is part of it. You're a man. You like to have sex with other women. Okay, let's work it out to where I'm happy. Period. That's it. That's it. So I'm sorry if I scared some sisters away, but I love you. I want you to know what it's about. And hey, if you're okay with it, it is fulfilling, because it feels good to let my man, I like a man to feel good about, and I'm not saying you, Sarah, or Sanuko, your man doesn't feel good, but the men, I'm talking about my polygynous men, not monogamous men, okay? I want him to feel like I can be a man. I don't have to lie. I don't have to lie. So anyway, I'll go ahead and mute out, but I wanted to, because that really triggered me, because I've seen personally where women are older and men have said, another way to pay. And men have said, well, even not even older. There was one couple that just came to mind. She was a nurse, or she is a nurse. She has sickle cell anemia. And he wanted a child from her. And her body just couldn't do it. So he started to consider, he loves his wife to this day, but he started to consider poly. I counseled him and I came to the conclusion, I was like, no, you don't need to do poly. This woman is ill. She's ill. How are you going to bring another woman in and then have a baby with her? Now, it could be, there's different scenarios, but see what I'm saying? That could backfire. So you see, I got triggered from that, because I've seen more than one relationship where the woman who was infertile, and many of our women are, and that didn't go well. Does it go well sometimes? Yes, I do know one relationship where it did go well, but guess what? The people already had children. The older woman already had children. So be careful. Be careful, family. I'm saying this out of love. Be careful. It sounds good on paper, ideally, but when you start to live it, it could be a lifetime of misery, and then it could end a marriage. That's all.
This whole conversation just highlights the fact that with any relationship that anybody's going to be entering into, you have to know yourself. and you have to know who you're getting into a relationship with, and you have to know and fully understand the terms. Whatever is decided, there's whatever direction your relationships take, you've really got to be open, be honest, and just put everything out there on the table, all the eventualities, because monogamous relationships are hard, polygynous relationships are hard, friendships can be hard, you know, there's everything out there. But I just find this conversation quite refreshing because it does highlight literally the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it does highlight the fact that regardless of the setup of your relationship, you've got to come to that with a full understanding of where you're both at and where you both are going to be and what happens in X, Y, or Z situation. And I think that having a polygynous relationship actually brings those things to the table more readily than the assumptions perhaps that a monogamous relationship would take. So yes, it definitely can get messy. I would agree with what Sarah said there. But I think if anybody is dishonest from the outset or isn't fully cognizant of what they want from it, it could get messy in any situation. And one of the things that really kind of struck me is just how it's more natural for a guy to want to sleep with more than one woman. And nobody's said on this call, or I haven't heard anywhere else, that men are naturally monogamous. They're not. And I think if we're going with nature, and we have to go with nature in every situation, I think if we're going with nature, then a polygynous relationship, it does make more sense. We as females, and westernized especially, we're not going to like it because we want our man to be faithful to us because we want to possess that man. And we don't want them going with other women because we think they're giving attention away. But if we can release some of that emotional kind of possession, then we could probably maybe be a lot happier in ourselves and in the fact that we do have this honesty and understanding in a relationship. Because I know for my mum and dad who've been married for like 51 years monogamously, apparently, as far as I know, it's not a happy marriage because they've changed over the years, because they haven't spoken. And I'm not saying they're unhappy because they're monogamous, but they're unhappy because I think both of them came into it not actually laying out and not being honest with who they were and what they would want when it came to the relationship down the line. So again, it just comes back to having the conversations, reviewing the conversations, because there'll be lots of different personalities involved, is a healthier way to do a relationship, in my view, now having this conversation, than an assumed kind of monogamous relationship and how it should be. So.
Yeah, thanks, Nix. And I totally agree with you. I think anyone going into any relationship, the first thing is to know themselves. The first thing is to love themselves. It shouldn't take another one to let you can validate your own self and love yourself. So you should never be going into a relationship for that reason. And yeah, regardless, monogamy or polygamy, there's always going to be issues because humans are humans. And we had a caller on and she's actually left now. Okay, that's unfortunate.
She did sound like she was traveling, so she could have just got cut off in the signal.
Yeah. So yes, and every relationship should be based on principles. And if it's not based on principles, then there's going to be issues. And polygamy is not just about a man being sexual. There's many things that women give to a man than just sex. So we shouldn't just be looking at it it's because he wants to sleep with another woman. Because as I said, traditionally, a man can have many wives and some of them he will not consummate that marriage. So it's never really just about sex. And we're living in a world that's imperfect. So striving to get to that perfection, we have to live on certain principles. And this Western world does not give us the principles that we need for solid foundation. So when the past said women in Africa are catching up with the West, actually the West is very degenerative. So it's not about them catching up with us. All they're doing once they start living the lifestyles of the West, they're actually degenerating their traditional cultures. So that's what I would like to say in that regards. Is there anyone else that would like to say something?
I would like to respond to that, because I'm all about getting back to our African roots. I teach a class on African spirituality related to the Bible. What I'm saying is, as far as the misogyny, especially the influence of Islam in Africa, so if I could be specific, I'm talking about women, not talking about the tribal women who are having matriarchal tribes, matriarchal based women-led tribes. That's beautiful. I'm not talking about that part. So you know what, you're right. We're actually circling back to our ancient African roots. But when I say catching up, I mean the women over there on the continent, let's say in Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Senegal, women are slowly seeing I'm worth something more than just having babies. I am equal as far as what the most of the unfathomable God, that's what I call God. Some people call God Allah, Yahweh, Yahweh. The unfathomable God made me just like he made man. So that's what I mean catching up. Of course, there's a lot of degenerative behavior, and there's a lot of deplorable behavior in the West. But one thing we cannot deny is that in the West, we've women before us, and I'm not just talking about Black women, there are women, pioneers, all women have made sacrifices for us. And I'm not a feminist, but they've made sacrifices for us to be able to do what we're doing right now. Talk, tell how we feel. Decide if we don't want to marry who. I don't want to marry this, like Sarah and Sanuka. I don't want poly. There are many places on the continent of the motherland where women can't do that, where we have, not to get super sensational, but I'm gonna throw it out there because it's real. We have female circumcision going on in a continent of our home, of our motherland. So that's what I meant. I just want to make that clear, because I am 100% about going back to our African roots, African spirituality. And that's why I believe polygyny is ideal, to be honest. But I also know that we've made some great strides as women. We can be proud of that. We can be honored as women to say, no, you can't make me marry somebody that I don't want to marry. No, I don't have to say, oh, I do poly because you want to have a bunch of babies. We can make choices. So I want to clarify myself, because I'm also a women's advocate. I'm pro-poly, but I'm 100% a women's advocate, not a feminist. So yeah, I needed to clarify that. And I don't think that men are just one-minded, hypersexual, I need sex, sex, sex. But I do know innately, biologically, men are designed to want to reproduce with more than one woman. I like to clarify myself. So I'll go ahead and mute out now. But yeah, when you said, that I need to clarify the thing about Africa, I saw you rubbing your brow. I'm sorry. I'll try to mute out and not say too much. But I do want to make myself clear that I'm for our people, and I'm an advocate for poly and an advocate for women. Advocate. Thank you.
Yeah, you brought in Christianity and you brought religion into this, and I wasn't even referring to religion. I was referring to spirituality, traditional African spirituality. So what Islam has brought into Africa has not been anything good in regards to the disrespect of women. So I wasn't even looking at that, and I'm not even gonna touch that. We do need to wrap up. So we need to have some closing thoughts. So anyone that's not spoken, if you wish to do so now, please, you can put your hands up. Shadia, my dear, go on.
I think my closing thoughts after hearing fors and against and people sharing their opinions and differing decisions, what I've kind of grasped for myself is the individuality aspect of polygamy, and the fact of, I think what made me quite thoughtful was where Sanuka shared about the sister wife becoming poorly, and then you looking after the sister wife, and the dynamics of that alone, because looking after a sick person isn't easy necessarily. You know, characteristics can change in that thing alone. Not saying that I wouldn't look after somebody, you know, but it just all depends on what, and you can't predict what an individual is going to be like when they're poorly. You just can't. And the dynamics of that. Also, I started off this evening saying that I was for polygamy. I don't know if I use the word traditionally, but I'm going to use the word now. So traditionally, I would possibly consider it. But I think the discussions this evening has also made me think about all the differing things to consider. You know, spirituality, economics, practicalities, all sorts of things. But I don't think I would consider the westernized way of polygamy for myself. I wouldn't be going there at all. I feel then I feel more on par with what Sarah was saying. It's way too confusing for me. Maybe because I've only just heard about it this evening, but there's too much resistance there, and maybe where I am in my life as well, because somebody mentioned age as well. I'm not sure who it was, but for me, my age, no, that's not for me at all. So there's many, many things to consider, and I thank all the ladies that have shared and all the ladies that haven't shared, and just us coming together, just talking about something respectfully. I can hear clearly that there's disagreements and different opinions, but no one's cut anybody down, and I really like that. So thank you for the evening. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks for your thoughts, Shadia, and very much food for thought. Sanuka, please.
Jai, I'd like to say, Napa, thank you very much as well for sharing, because it's sort of, you know, a young modern day person's view on polygamy. And though I've come and said a lot, I said it because I wanted to draw stuff out. So, you know, I respect that. I've been married for a very long time. So, you know, many, many decades. So I would say that any marriage has its difficulties, as Ma Abba said. And therefore, you know, who's to say what would work better for one person? I think that if it's working for you, then I say, like I would say for anybody who's married, not married on the call, thinking about getting married, thinking about being in a relationship, you know, we just ask for the ancestors to bless that. What I would say is, for anybody going into it, we just about scratch the surface on spirituality. But I would say, although I agree with Napa that I don't think you can choose a woman for a man, because I think they would resent it, knowing men. I think your energy would have to combine with that other woman's energy, not just you like them and what they say out of their mouth, their energy, because women are energetic beings. And I just like to leave you with this, and I don't know if a lot of you have experienced this. When you get women living in a house, now it happens to women that flat share at uni, sisters that live in a house, friends, often your cycles all end up going the same. So you will all be on your cycle at the same time and things like that. So this idea that the husband's going to be able to have sex with one and not the other, it's probably not going to happen, because even though I've never lived a polygamous relationship, I've been in, you know, many environments with women, and you sync like that. So what I would like to say to anybody that's considering a relationship, full stop, whether it's monogamous, polygamous, or otherwise, actually, whichever spiritual system that you have confidence in, I don't say believe in, apply yourself to your own meditation first. Apply yourself to any kind of spiritual person that you have confidence in, that can give you some insight. And if you understand about readings, whatever readings that you will go for, there's many different types, do that first, to ensure that the person you're linking in with, that from an energetic point of view, you have a longevity with that person before you go and have children, if possible. Because what I would say, the fact that you're considering whether it's a polygynous relationship, the monogamous relationship, means that you're giving thought to what's going to happen to any future children that you have, as opposed to just thinking, oh, this man smells nice, or, you know, he looks good, then I don't want to be in a relationship. Let's see where it goes. And you have sex with him. Next minute, your ancestors want you to have a child, and you have a child with somebody, and there's no kind of agreement at all. And the last thing I'd want to say is not because I was trying to be negative, but I always say the bottom line, because that, you know, the only way is up from there. So you always look for the best, but consider the worst. And so I would say, having been married for almost 40 years, people change. People change. So your character doesn't actually change. Behavior changes, and circumstances definitely change. And circumstance can make or break you. So whatever agreements you may think you have with somebody goes in, look at their character and see if their character suits, not what they agree out of their mouth, because those things can change. Even, say, for example, a successful person may be able to afford 3 wives. But what happens if something happens? Something can happen, a company can go bankrupt, something can happen that that person's finances, beyond any expectation, could go. So that's why I'm saying you have to be in a position to say, yes, I agree with Napa. If you want to have the privilege of another wife, definitely you should be able to afford it. But you still have to say, what happens if something happens and those finances go? Will I be able to cooperate with these other women? Will I be able to look after their children? Will I be able to do that? And if you think that might be hard for me, don't go there. And the character of the person, what are they going to be like if something like that doesn't work? And so that's what I would say with any relationship, but it just maximizes it in a polygynous one. But if you can have a successful relationship of any type, that you can bring up children, give them the love that they need, especially in these times. First and foremost, as a woman, the love that they need. That's the most important, because the man will provide, and the man can give you strength, and the man needs to give the children love if they're in the picture. But it's the love that will carry the children through anything in life. I've seen it time and time again. The people that struggle
to meet adversity and to meet challenges in life are usually 90% of the time those who didn't get good love when they were children. So whether you want to be in monogamy or polygyny, just make sure that the character of the person is there so that they can do that. And if they disappear, you yourself are the bottom line. And that's what I'd like to say. And may ancestors bless you all.
Thank you, Sanuka. Very powerful. Nelly.
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Napa for sharing. It was very insightful to have somebody that actually experienced polygyny. Like you said, you grew up in it, and you also in your marriage is one like that. It was really yeah, insightful and interesting to hear your perspective. Again, what I would say is that as Sanuka just said, it really made me realize how much you need to consider the character of the person that you want to bring into the marriage, because I can look at myself now and honestly say I don't have the right quality. I have a very short temper, and I don't really like to share my space with even with my other half, actually. So I would struggle in a polygyny marriage, you know. So but it's really interesting the way you gave example that brought it down to reality, so people can really consider what it's like, because you know people like to go in as I said, have a very nice picture of things, but the real practical thing, it's nice to hear about that, and I think we need more talk about that, to making sure that people know what they're getting into, they're really thinking about what they're doing. But I would say I am pro polygyny. I think it's nice to have the option, you know, as you were saying, monogamous marriages are not necessarily doing very well. We should definitely try other things and go back to things that we know worked in the past. But again, I'm not sure if at this stage people have the right quality, because it seems like you have to work a lot on yourself before you go there. But I think it's for all relationship. But maybe in monogamous relationship, people don't tend to work so much on themselves before entering the marriage. They just want love and want somebody that loves them for who they are. But in reality, it takes more than that. So yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was a very interesting discussion tonight.
Thank you, Nelly. Thank you. Anyone else, please? Mama, would you like to say anything as a wrapping up, please?
And I would like to say, Doctor, I thank you very much for the way how you have explained things, because with the older person, I didn't really know much about it, but you have given me a great outline. I understand what you have said, you know, and may you continue in what you are doing, and the ancestors give you the strength to carry on.
Thank you very much, Mama. It's an honor to speak to you, and to all the ladies, especially the elder. Don't think that I don't listen and take in every bit of you. I'm learning from you. I'm in a learning circle. So no matter how much I know from my path, just being here with you and listening to all of you, I value every one of you. And I take in, I analyze, I process everything that I hear today from you beautiful sisters. And much respect to you, First Mama, Elder, and Kasati. I can't go through all the ones I interact with: Nelly, Neek, Sarah, and of course Sanuka. All of you, thank you. Shadaya, thank you for having me, and thank you to Esoteric. This was a beautiful dialogue. I like it. I like how it got a little, but I love my sisters. You're so beautiful queens. I love the interaction. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's a wrap, as they would say. So yeah, again, thank you all, and maybe the next time we can discuss polyandry, and that will be even more powerful than this one.
Now that might be a good topic, because I've been looking at that. The life, let me just ask you, Kasadi, because you're very traditional. I see you're very, very traditional and about poly, and I love it, by the way. I do teach those points, but I want to ask you, what do you think about polyandry and women having multiple husbands?
I'll leave that to the next.
Okay, because I want to hear.
You know, I'm going to leave that one on the fence.
Right, we may need to not have the men available for this one.
Let's
we might
put
have to
this
have
way.
that.
You know what I would say still? Love has no boundaries. So whereas we could have 10 children, 5 children, 3 children, we share the love. We love each one of them individually. And it would always be the same in regards to a man. Because as any individual that you come across, you love them for their own individual selves. So I wouldn't rule that out. Likewise, I wouldn't rule out polygamy. And
wow, so you're not as traditional as I thought you were.
no, they're both traditional.
Actually, you're right. That is African. There's tribes, right?
Yeah, they're both traditional. They're both traditional. Right. Yeah, so yeah, again, as I said, we're going to wrap this up, and thank you very much, Esoteric, for putting this together, and thank you for all the participants, you know, and may we meet again. May your ancestors go with you. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you. Goodbye.
Well,
Thank you.
Bye.